Good morning, and just another quick video, this time on warehouse allocations, which is a bit of a black box to most people, but it actually is relatively simple. So the flow of data to a warehouse is via the replenishment request records. So usually over an afternoon or evening, a store will send a bunch of replenishment records, which are on very basic level. There's a difference between stock and their minimums, so it's a list of things they want and the quantities they want. And then, as you probably all know, there is a job called Tracks Warehouse Allocation, which turns all of the current outstanding replenishment requests into allocations. So that's just a simple way of working out. Now I've got 10 stores, so I have a whole heap of stock. Who can have what have I got, what have I not got. Things that it can allocate, i.e. it has stock that it can supply, it will allocate, and the rest will be rejected. The replenishment request records will be rejected. The key tables at this stage are allocation header and debt. Let's have a quick look at the records now. We've got a nice example at NDS in this query where they've picked half of it but not the rest. So you can see that we've allocated the stock at 5 to 5. It has an allocation number in the header and consequently in the debt. And then we can see we've filtered it for a particular warehouse, Horsham in this case. That's the quantity that's being allocated, and this is all about then getting the pickers to pick it and matching what they've picked to what we allocated, hopefully. Until the allocations are sent to a picker, they sit with allocation pick line number and pick quantity as null and status as 0. So I think if we can, let me just log on to NDS now, as long as they haven't picked it in the last few seconds. Oh, begun picks. There we go. So the records we're looking at here, Horsham 201 records, relate to the rows for which the allocation pick column is null and status is 0. As soon as they do allocate that, it'll change to status 1 and allocation pick will be not null. As you may have noticed, I've created a view, VW_allocation, which gives you a nice easy view on that and some convenient lookups. I've also extended that to VW allocation to replenishment request, which links back the allocations to the original request. Now it's not quite as simple as you might think. It's not a one-to-one, so there isn't a direct relationship between allocation debt and the replenishment request records. That's because potentially, although I don't think it happens very often, potentially you could have the store backing up a number of requests over a number of days. So you could have 2 or 3 allocation request records which end up being summed and turned into one matching allocation debt record. So there is therefore an allocation request table which links the GUID of the requests to a link GUID, which is then what we see in the allocation debt and in this view as well. So all this view does is give us the GUID from which the allocations were made. So if you're working backwards, what happened to replenishment request with GUID XYZ, then you can query this one, and that's the replenishment request GUID there. So if you've traced that from the store, you could just simply do GUID equals that. If you prepare for a long wait because and it's not particularly well indexed. Very, very large tables. Okay, so the final thing we're going to look at is the allocation audit data, which is created when we run the allocation job at NDS, for instance. If you're looking for the ultimate logic as to why a product wasn't allocated, then this is what you need. However, you can probably shortcut this by looking at the stock rewind a lot of the time that you choose. So what the allocation job does is to sum up all the products that have been requested and work out product by product what's available and what isn't. So first one's a good example here. So RNA London bird table, no stock available, must have been one or more requests, so they just get ditched because there's no point in doing any more, there is no stock. Second one's quite a good example. So the first line here says, okay, we know we've got 893 available stock. We do actually have an existing allocation, outstanding allocation, so we've already said to Croydon that they can have some stock. The allocated quantity we said for that is 1. So we've actually only got 892 available stock after allocations. So we're then in a good place to know that we can supply that little lot. And that's when data gets row gets added for each of those into allocation debt there. I think that's about it really. It pretty much tells you what's going on. That's the end of this video, but any questions, just let me know. Again, I'll put the queries for this in the YouTube description section. Let me know. Cheers, bye.